And how would you rate your experience tonight, on a scale of 1 to 10, please?
10, please. Absolutely perfect.
A young waitress's biggest mistake on a blind date, serving the wrong table, leads her face-to-face with a billionaire's furious son. Will this disaster spark a fiery clash or an unexpected connection? As they walked out into the New York night, Mia felt a quiet certainty. The disastrous blind date, the spilled wine, the wrong table, it had all led her here, to a love she never expected and a future she was ready to fight for. And in that moment, she knew, sometimes, the greatest stories start with a single, beautiful mistake. Before we go into details, click subscribe, like and comment where you're watching from. I would be glad to know this story goes as far as Canada, all of the United States of America, Australia, Africa, and even the United Kingdom. So let me know where you're watching from on comment section. I pray may the good God Almighty bless and preserve you all and your family. Amen. Let's begin. The sun dipped below the skyline of New York City, casting a golden hue over the bustling streets of Manhattan. In a cozy, dimly lit Italian restaurant named La Bella Vita, 22-year-old Mia Harper adjusted her apron, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared for the evening rush. Mia was a small-town girl from upstate New York, with dreams bigger than the cramped apartment she shared with two roommates. Her chestnut hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her hazel eyes sparkled with a mix of determination and exhaustion. She had moved to the city a year ago, chasing a career in journalism, but for now, she was just a waitress, juggling plates and dodging rude customers to make ends meet. MIA's life was a whirlwind of early mornings at a community college, late-night shifts at the restaurant, and stolen moments scribbling article ideas in her worn-out notebook. She wasn't glamorous, nor was she particularly confident, but she had a quiet strength that kept her going. Tonight, though, she was distracted. Her best friend, Lila, had set her up on a blind date at the restaurant after her shift, a guy named Ethan, who Lila swore was perfect for her. Mia wasn't so sure. Dating felt like a luxury she couldn't afford, not when rent was due and her dreams felt so far away. The restaurant was alive with the clink of glasses and the hum of conversation. La Bella Vita was a favorite among the city's elite, its rustic charm and exquisite cuisine drawing everyone from local artists to Wall Street tycoons. Mia weaved through the tables, balancing a tray of steaming pasta dishes, her mind half on her orders and half on the blind date she dreaded. She didn't notice the man in the corner booth, his sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes scanning the room with an air of impatience. Nor did she notice the way the staff whispered about him. Alexander Sterling, the only son of billionaire real estate mogul Victor Sterling, known for his temper and impossibly high standards. As Mia approached table 12, she glanced at her notepad, confirming the order, a plate of truffle risotto for a solo diner. She set the dish down with a polite smile, unaware that she had just served the wrong table. The man at table 12, Alexander, looked up from his phone, his expression darkening. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low and edged with irritation. "I didn't order this." Mia froze, her heart sinking. "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Let me fix that." But before she could finish, Alexander's gaze sharpened. "Do you even know who I am?" he asked, his tone cutting through the din of the restaurant. The other waitstaff exchanged nervous glances. MIA's cheeks flushed as she stammered an apology, scrambling to retrieve the plate. In her haste, her elbow knocked over a glass of red wine, which splashed across Alexander's pristine white shirt. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. MIA's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Alexander stood, his towering frame imposing, his expression a storm of fury. "Do you have any idea how much this shirt costs?" he snapped. "More than you make in a month, I'd wager." MIA's throat tightened, tears prickling her eyes. She wanted to disappear, to run back to her tiny hometown and never set foot in this city again. But before she could respond, her manager, Mr. Rossi, swooped in, all apologies and forced smiles, ushering her away to the kitchen. As she fled, she caught a glimpse of Alexander's face, not just angry, but something else. Hurt. Betrayed. She couldn't place it. In the kitchen, Mia leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. Mr. Rossi's lecture about carelessness barely registered. All she could think about was the man's cold blue eyes and the weight of her mistake. Little did she know, this disastrous moment was about to change her life forever. The rest of MIA's shift was a blur of apologies and forced smiles. She avoided table 12 like the plague, letting her coworker, Javier, handle Alexander Sterling's actual order, a grilled salmon with lemon herb sauce. But the damage was done. Whispers about the billionaire's son and the clumsy waitress spread like wildfire among the staff. Mia felt like a failure, her dreams of journalism slipping further away with every judgmental glance. As the clock struck 10 p.m., Mia untied her apron, her stomach churning at the thought of her blind date. Lila had texted her a description of Ethan: tall, brown hair, wearing a navy blazer. He'd be waiting at table 8. Mia glanced at herself in the staff bathroom mirror, smoothing her hair and wiping away the smudged mascara from her earlier tears. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection, though she didn't believe it. She stepped back into the dining area, scanning for table 8. There he was, tall, brown-haired, in a navy blazer, just as Lila described. He was facing away, staring out the window at the city lights. Mia took a deep breath and approached, forcing a smile. "Hi, Ethan. I'm Mia." The man turned, and MIA's heart stopped. It wasn't Ethan. It was Alexander Sterling, his wine-stained shirt replaced with a fresh one, his blue eyes locking onto hers with a mix of surprise and something unreadable. "I'm not Ethan," he said, his voice softer now, though still laced with an edge. "But you're the waitress who ruined my shirt." MIA's face burned. I'm so sorry. I thought, my friend set me up on a blind date, and..." Alexander raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "A blind date? At my table?" Before Mia could explain, the real Ethan arrived, a lanky, nervous-looking guy with a sheepish grin, waving from across the room. MIA's embarrassment reached new heights as she realized her mistake. She stammered an apology to Alexander, who waved it off with a look that was half amused, half annoyed, and hurried to meet Ethan. The date was a disaster from the start. Ethan was sweet but awkward, talking endlessly about his accounting job while MIA's mind kept drifting to the man in the corner booth. Alexander hadn't left. He sat alone, sipping a glass of whiskey, his gaze flickering toward her every so often. It unnerved her, but it also sparked something, a curiosity, a pull she couldn't explain. As the date ended and Ethan left with a polite handshake, Mia felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. She was about to head home when Alexander approached her, his presence commanding the room. "You're not very good at this, are you?" he said, his tone teasing but not cruel. Mia bristled. "At what? Serving tables or going on terrible dates?" "Both," he replied, his smirk widening. "But you've got my attention." Before she could respond, he handed her a business card. "I'm looking for someone to write a piece for my family's foundation. A profile on our charity work. You're a writer, aren't you?" Mia blinked, stunned. "How did you?" "Your notebook." Deeding toward the worn journal peeking out of her bag. "I saw you scribbling in it earlier. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the Sterling Foundation. Don't be late." And with that, he was gone, leaving Mia with a racing heart and a million questions. How did he know she was a writer? Why was he offering her this chance? And why couldn't she shake the feeling that this was the start of something much bigger than a spilled glass of wine? The next morning, Mia stood outside the towering glass building that housed the Sterling Foundation, her palms sweaty despite the crisp October air. She had barely slept, her mind replaying the events of the previous night. Alexander Sterling was intimidating, infuriating, and undeniably magnetic. She didn't trust him, or herself around him, but the opportunity to write for his foundation was too good to pass up. It could be her big break, the chance to prove she was more than a clumsy waitress. Inside, the foundation's offices were a world of polished marble and sleek furniture, a stark contrast to MIA's rundown apartment. Alexander greeted her with a curt nod, his tailored suit accentuating his broad shoulders and commanding presence. "You're on time," he said, as if surprised. "Good. Let's get to work." He explained the project, a feature article on the Sterling Foundation's efforts to fund education for underprivileged youth. Mia would shadow him for a week, attending meetings, visiting project sites, and interviewing beneficiaries. It was a dream assignment, but there was a catch. Alexander would be her direct supervisor, and he made it clear he expected perfection. Over the next few days, Mia threw herself into the work, determined to prove herself. She followed Alexander to community centers in Brooklyn, where kids laughed and learned in classrooms funded by his family's wealth. She saw a side of him she hadn't expected, passionate, dedicated, even kind when he thought no one was watching. But he was also demanding. quick to point out her typos or question her word choices. Their interactions were a dance of tension and intrigue, each moment charged with unspoken challenges. One evening, as they reviewed her draft in his office, Alexander leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Why journalism?" he asked, his tone softer than usual. "You could have picked something easier." Mia hesitated, then spoke from the heart. "Because stories matter. They give people a voice, especially the ones who don't have one. I want to tell those stories." For the first time, Alexander looked at her not as a waitress or a rookie writer, but as someone who might understand him. "My mother used to say that," he murmured, almost to himself. She believed in stories, too. Mia sensed a crack in his armor, a glimpse of the man beneath the billionaire sun. She wanted to ask more, but he quickly changed the subject, his walls going back up. As the week progressed, Mia and Alexander's working relationship grew more complicated. There were moments of connection, shared laughs over coffee, late-night debates about the power of words, but also clashes. Alexander's perfectionism clashed with MIA's creative instincts, and his guarded nature frustrated her. She began to wonder about the pain behind his sharp edges, the reason for his relentless drive. One afternoon, while visiting a school in the Bronx, Mia overheard a conversation between Alexander and a teacher. The teacher mentioned his mother, Elizabeth Sterling, who had founded the education program before her death 5 years ago. Alexander's face tightened, and he excused himself abruptly. Later, Mia found him alone on the school's rooftop, staring out at the city. "You okay?" she asked, stepping closer. He didn't look at her. "You don't get to ask that," he said, but his voice lacked its usual bite. Mia took a risk. "I heard about your mom. I'm sorry." Alexander's jaw clenched, but after a long silence, he spoke. "She was everything to me. The foundation was a dream, not my father's. He only cares about the optics, not the kids. I'm trying to honor her, but it's never enough." MIA's heart ached for him. She saw the weight he carried, the pressure of living up to a legacy while grieving a loss. Without thinking, she touched his arm. "You're doing more than you think." He looked at her then, his blue eyes raw with emotion. For a moment, the world shrank to just the two of them, the city's noise fading away. But then he pulled back, his expression hardening. "Don't get too comfortable, Mia. This is just business." Her heart sank, but she nodded, hiding her hurt. She threw herself back into the article, determined to make it perfect, not just for her career, but for him, for the kids, for the story that mattered. The night before the article was due, disaster struck. MIA's laptop crashed, corrupting her nearly finished draft. She spent hours trying to recover it, tears streaming down her face as the deadline loomed. She called Alexander in a panic, expecting him to berate her. Instead, he showed up at her apartment with a USB drive and a bottle of wine. "Back up," he said, handing her the drive. "I saved your last draft when we were working late." "You're welcome." Mia was stunned. "Why would you?" "Because I know what it's like to lose something important," he said quietly. "Now let's finish this." They worked through the night, side by side on her tiny couch, their knees brushing as they polished the article. It was the best thing Mia had ever written, raw, honest, and full of heart. But more than that, it was the moment she realized she was falling for Alexander, despite his walls, despite her fears. When they submitted the article at dawn, Alexander looked at her with something new in his eyes, respect, maybe even admiration. "You're good, Mia Harper," he said. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The article was a hit. Published on the Sterling Foundation's website and picked up by local news outlets, it brought in a flood of donations and praise. MIA's name was suddenly on everyone's lips, her inbox filled with offers from editors and blogs. But the victory felt bittersweet. Alexander had grown distant since their all-nighter, retreating behind his usual cold demeanor. At the Foundation's gala to celebrate the article's success, Mia arrived in a borrowed dress, feeling out of place among the city's elite. Alexander was there, breathtaking in a tuxedo, but he barely acknowledged her. Hurt and confused, Mia confronted him in a quiet corner of the venue. "Why are you shutting me out?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "I thought we—" "You thought what?" he interrupted, his eyes flashing. "That this was some fairy tale? I'm not your prince, Mia. I'm a Sterling. My life isn't my own." Her heart broke at his words, but she refused to back down. You're more than your last name, Alexander. You're the man who stayed up all night to help me, who fights for those kids, who loved his mother so much he's carrying her dream. Don't push me away because you're scared." For a moment, he looked like he might argue. Then, to her shock, he kissed her, a fierce, desperate kiss that said everything he couldn't. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to do this, Mia, but I want to try." In the weeks that followed, Mia and Alexander navigated their new reality. It wasn't easy. His father disapproved, the press hounded them, and their worlds were still miles apart. But they faced it together, slowly building something real. MIA's career took off, with a staff writer position at a major magazine, but she never forgot her roots or the kids at the foundation. Alexander, inspired by her, began to challenge his father's control, carving out his own path. One evening, they returned to La Bella Vita, sitting at table 12, the same table where it all began. Mia laughed as she recounted the wine incident, and Alexander grinned, his eyes warm. "Best mistake you ever made," he said, taking her hand. "If you like the story, please like, comment, subscribe."